Good morning, everyone. Welcome into this day with Quimper Unitarian Universalist Fellowship. The fulcrum of the earth tilts towards goodness, and how can I hold fear? How can sadness dim the day when I step into the beauty of this gleaming new dawn? I will ride along, drinking deep the hours, worshiping as if this were my last chance. That's from Jennifer Pratt Walter. My name is Bruce Zalnaradis, and I'm a member of the board here at QUUF. As we gather, I acknowledge that the water, land, and shorelines here in Port Townsend are the traditional territory of the S'Klallam and Chimicum peoples. We honor and acknowledge our indigenous members and neighbors and vow to help restore and sustain these homelands. If you're visiting today, I offer a special welcome and invite you to join us for refreshments and conversation in the fellowship hall after the service. That's to your right as you leave the sanctuary. We also have a newcomers table. That's near the patio doors, also to the right, where our greeters are ready to answer any questions you might have. And we want to welcome you again, all of you, this morning. We're glad that you're here. Our lovely flower arrangement today is donated by Cecilia Flickinger in anticipation of another happy year with my best friend and all-around good husband and father, Michael Flickinger. Thanks, Cecilia. We know you've been getting a flood of announcements about our upcoming QUF State of the Fellowship members meeting. That's a mouthful. On Tuesday, February 6th. That's because we really want you to come, and we think it's important. And if you haven't memorized the details by now, you can find them in the order of service today or tomorrow in Monday's board report, which is published tomorrow, or by asking anyone here with a pink badge, like this. The board made some changes last Wednesday in the proposed bylaw revision, so it's important that you take a moment to read over these, again, proposed bylaws. Try to study them so that when the vote comes on that Tuesday, you can do so quickly. You'll find links to the revisions and instructions for voting by proxy in the Monday board report as well. Please put the meeting in your calendar and then show up here for the at the sanctuary on Tuesday, February 6th at 5:30, so people can gather before the actual voting takes place. At this point, I'd like to welcome Susan Stone. She's going to share a little bit more about dining for dollars. Welcome, Susan.
Thank you. Now, am I Napoleon? No. I'm a taco. Yes, thank you. Okay, thank you. Good morning, everyone. I'm Susan Stone. If you're like me, you have at least one or two favorite activities that you look forward to at QUUF. Mine is the AHA potluck and discussion group twice a month. I really look forward to sitting down and enjoying a delicious meal with my QUUF friends. And of course, the Thanksgiving and Christmas potlucks are a fun and delicious way to enjoy each other's company. And thank you, Linda, for that. Dining for Dollars is an opportunity to celebrate and support our QUUF community through the gathering over meals together. Dining for Dollars isn't just a fundraiser, it also helps us deepen our connections with each other. This is the last day to sign up to host a meal. You choose the cuisine, the number of guests, the time of day and date between March and October. Forms for meal hosting are available online and at our table out front in the foyer. Just look for the taco hat. On February 4th, the bidding begins. You will have the opportunity to bid on a wide variety of meal experiences and cuisines that have been donated by fellow QUUFers. Bid on your favorite meals or try a new cuisine. Some of the meal experiences offered are paella on the patio with an amazing view of Mount Rainier, an Alaskan seafood extravaganza, a New Mexican fiesta, a Fijian feast, movie night with delicious desserts, and a MASH 4077 evening with Hot Lips and the gang, just to name a few. Oh, what fun. Man, I'm getting hungry just thinking about this, aren't you? Meals will take place between March and October. Enjoy the meals offered and purchased while strengthening relationships, making new friends, and deepening our connection to our wonderful, vibrant QUUF community. We hope you'll join us and experience the simple joy of giving and receiving hospitality. Cheers.
Thanks, Susan. I'd like to also make an announcement about the Women's Spring Retreat. That's going to be held the weekend of March 22nd through the 24th at Pilgrim Firs Conference Center in Port Orchard. The theme of this year, for this year, is Dare to Dream, Manifesting Joy. This is the time to take a break from the demands of daily life, relax, recharge, and reconnect with other women. If you'd like a few days filled with natural beauty, sisterly companionship, and opportunities to hike, sing, dance, write, and play, please plan to attend. On Friday through Sunday, we will refresh our inner selves, deepen our relationships with each other, and share and learn in the many fun and fabulous workshops available throughout the weekend. If you have experience in art, music, or movement, or expertise in a topic you'd like to share with a small group, please contact Jess. And you can see her email up on the board there. More information and registration packets will be available during the coffee hour and in the fellowship hall. One other announcement that's been added, I'd like to ask you to come join us for laughter yoga with Pete and Bill. Fridays, 4 to 5 p.m., and you meet in the fellowship hall. And please use the north parking lot. Finally, we'd like to welcome C.B. Beal, who uses the pronouns they, them, theirs. C.B. is an engaging and humorous Unitarian Universalist preacher, storyteller, and educator who specializes in facilitating learning experiences that involve issues of marginalization, oppression, and privilege. C.B. supports people to hold the complexities of our lives as we co-create a safer, braver space within which people can be challenged to learn and grow. Let us settle our minds and calm our hearts.
These are the words of Donna Markova. I will not die an unlived life. I will not live in fear of falling or catching fire. I choose to inhabit my days, to allow my living to open me, to make me less afraid, more accessible, to loosen my heart until it becomes a wing, a torch, a promise. I choose to risk my significance, to live so that which came to me as seed goes to the next as blossom, and that which came to me as blossom goes on as fruit. Come, let us worship together.
It always helps to have the helper candle lit first. But now that it is, will you join me in saying our words for the lighting of our chalice? We gather this hour. Waiting for a closer connection. May the light of the chalice signify hope, love. Let's join in singing. Our first song this morning is Come, Come, Whoever You Are. I invite you to rise in body or spirit. Join in the singing.
I think we can do a 4-part round on this, so we'll sing it all together once, and then we will break into 4 parts, and we have 4 leaders here. Woo-hoo. And we start on come, ready, and come, come, whoever you are, wanderer, worshiper, lover of the evening, ours is no caravan of despair. Come, yet again, come, 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 whoever you are, come, come, whoever you are, wanderer, worshiper, lover of living, ours is no caravan of despair. Come, yet again, come, come, yet again, come. I have the big pink blanket with me, so that means we're having a watch party for our Time for All Ages. I invite any children present to come forward and have a seat on up here up front to be able to see and watch CB a little more carefully. Childlike, childish, any of them are welcome to come up. Nice to see you all. Good morning. Here we go. All right, I think we're ready now. Oh, there we are.
Look down there, I see you. Thanks for coming close. This morning, I'm telling a story called Spork. It's a retelling, and it was originally penned by Kyle McClear. Now, it was originally a picture book, so let me introduce you to the central characters in this story. There's a spork, and its parents, the spoon and fork, and various other cutlery. Later in the story, a toddler comes upon the scene very suddenly. Spork was neither spoon nor fork, but a bit of both and also neither. Spork had two parents who both thought that Spork was perfectly sporky. But Spork stuck out. In the kitchen, forks were forks and spoons were spoons. Cutlery customs were closely followed. Mixing was uncommon. The forks and the spoons knew who they were and what they were for. Now, naturally, there were rule breakers, knives who loved chopsticks and tongs who married forks, but such families were unusual. Spork spent most of their time tucked in the bottom corner of the back drawer of the kitchen counter. You know the drawer. It's the one with the 5 corn-on-the-cob forks and the 3 plastic straws and that old can opener that's kept around for when the good can opener has gone missing. Yeah, that drawer. When Spork came out of the drawer to sit on the countertops, the other utensils would say, "Hey," and move on. They'd sometimes forget they had met Spork many times before. They might ignore Spork completely or even ask intrusive questions. One day, after the billionth time Spork was asked, "Have you been coming here long?" And "What are you anyway?" And "Has your body always been like that?" And the zillionth time Spork was passed over when the table was being set, Spork sighed and thought it must be easier to be just one single thing. And Spork decided to try to pick one thing to be. Spork thought to start by fixing their head. And so they put on a bowler hat to look more spoonish. But the forks thought Spork was too round. Then Spork made a paper crown to look more forkish. But the spoons thought that Spork was too pointy. Spork wondered if there were other lonely creatures out there with no matching kind, who never got chosen to be at the table, who didn't really belong. They wondered if there was an egg beater, rolling pin, or a garlic press ice cream scoop, or a spatula teapot. Think that through. But Spork never met them. At dinner time, Spork watched from the counter while the spoons played pea hockey and skillfully balanced boiled eggs. Spork sat off to the side while the forks raked fancy patterns in mashed potatoes and twirled noodles around in complicated circles like rhythmic gymnastics. At the end of this and every other meal, Spork looked on while the others enjoyed a fabulous dip in the pool. Why, there were even bubbles and a spongy massage. Spork was there, though, watching from the counter, then shuffled back to their drawer. Well, then one day, a messy thing arrived. This messy thing had obviously never heard of cutlery customs or table manners. It had its way with spaghetti. It giggled to see the peas bounce and spread across the floor in great patterns of escape. No cutlery customs at all. This messy thing smeared and spilled and flung and clumped and dripped without a care. "Oh, wait," said the forks. But the messy thing did not wait. Fling! Oh, careful, said the spoons. But the messy thing was not careful. Go! Smear! "Oh, help," said the forks, while the messy thing continued to slop and splatter. "Quick," said the spoons. They didn't know what to do with the messy thing. Now, a fork may be good for poking and picking, and a spoon may be fine for scooping and stirring, but this messy thing with its slurpy and clumpy half-finished food bits needed something else. Something that could do all sorts of things at once. Something flexible and easy to hold. Something that was neither spoon nor fork, but a bit of both and also neither. The utensils looked around, and they saw Spork, and they immediately felt this really complicated mixture of excitement and relief and some embarrassment. And that's the part of our story about when Spork leapt off the countertop, over the cutlery drawer, and landed on the high chair. Doo-doo-doo! The messy thing saw Spork and immediately froze. Its eyes got big as it gurgled its curiosity. It grabbed Spork and held Spork motionless in its fist. It tapped Spork, it waggled Spork around, and it let out a very cheerful shriek. And that's the story of how Spork finally and happily found their way to the table. And the cutlery, having realized the mistake was theirs all along, immediately had a meeting and voted unanimously to begin the process of dismantling and completely reconstructing the kitchen and the kitchen drawers. They asked Spork what Spork needed and others. They listened. They bore witness to lives they had previously not understood or even noticed. In the end, there was a space for Spork, and a proper space for the 5 corn-on-the-cob forks and the 3 plastic straws and the old can opener that sticks. They built new spaces that would properly fit the egg beater rolling pin, garlic press ice cream scoop, and spatula teapot. They learned about Spork, and they began to notice when they were unfriendly. They started to interrupt each other if someone asked an intrusive or rude question. They stopped asking Spork and their friends to prove their experience, and they simply started learning about their experience. Well, as they did these things, they learned more about themselves than they thought they already knew. Why, they found out there was an entire subgroup of forks and spoons that would really prefer to play board games than spend so much time in the pool. Yeah. And there were knives that really, really wanted to hang out in the garage with the hatchets. Yep. They had been so busy thinking they knew who they were, it hadn't occurred to them that they were already so many things at one time. They began to open themselves to new possibilities instead of relying on old stories. When they finished the kitchen remodel, they left a couple of empty spaces too. Spaces that were constructed with flexibility for whomever came next. The table was for all, so the organization had to be as well. And they all agreed that Spork was perfectly sporky. Just a little bit round, just a little bit pointy, just right.
UCB. And now, if the folks along the aisle would stand up and make an arch, we'll sing our kids out to their morning programs. Go now in peace, go now in peace. May the spirit of love surround you everywhere, everywhere you may go. Go now in peace, go now in peace. May the spirit of love surround you everywhere, everywhere you may go. I love that we dance in here sometimes. I encourage dancing. Just saying. We pause now for a time of generosity and to receive an offering, which today will go to St. Vincent de Paul. So I invite Dan Campbell, chair of the board there, to come up and tell us a little bit about their work.
Thank you, and thanks to all of you. St. Vincent de Paul is able to do some very wonderful things here in the county. We, in fact, deal just with East Jefferson County, it being too hard to get to West Jefferson County in any numbers, as you can only imagine. What is our mission at St. Vincent de Paul? The easiest way to say it, it's to keep people in their homes, okay? This morning we opened up our week, and by the time I came in here, we had 9 calls for assistance. By tomorrow afternoon, we'll probably have 65. Okay? These are people who have shut-off notices from the PUD, get their power turned off in the middle of winter, eviction notices on their rent, empty refrigerators. I get choked up. They need help, and they need it now. There are over 60 agencies in Jefferson County who help the poor. There's only one who helps them in 24 to 36 hours. That's us. We're not big. We don't give away thousands to any individual, but we give away about $4,000 a week. Okay? We need 3 things to survive. One is volunteers. We don't get any recompense. We don't even get reimbursed for the miles we drive. That's all donated. We need resources, money, so we can help them heat their homes, stay in their homes, feed their children. And then there's one third thing we need, which we unfortunately have too much of, which is people who need help. And I just want to ask you all to help us with either the resources or as a volunteer. We do not ask any of the people who we talk to what they believe in, where they're from, what their backgrounds are. They called and asked for help, and we help them. We don't get into, how did you get in this position? That's not our business. There's lots of other groups who can help with mental illness, addiction, whatever the situation must be. But that's not us. You need to go and get your propane tank filled this afternoon because it's empty. It's that kind of situation that we deal with. And so when the basket comes around, I ask you to be generous. Your neighbors will appreciate it. And I know that it will give you a feeling of warmth and value to help these people who need it so very much. Thank you. Thank you.
The ushers will come among you in a few moments to receive the offering, and there will be additional ways to give projected on the screen. But before that, please join me in saying our offering words. This fellowship is a community of ourselves. Wait, is it not up there? Does anybody have an order of service handy that they can read along? If you have one, I think it's in there. No? All right. All right, well, let me say it, and you all can mumble along if you like. This fellowship is the community of ourselves. Its energy and resources are our energy and resources. Its wealth is what we share. When we contribute to the life of this community, we affirm our lives within it. The morning's offering will now be received. Nothing like a little jazz in the mornings. It was lovely, thank you. This time is set aside for the sharing of joys and sorrows. We know that our personal joys and sorrows are only a fragment of the joys and sorrows in the larger community of life. And so a moment I will place a stone, thinking in particular of Holocaust Remembrance Day, which was yesterday. As we hold that day, we hold also those who swore never again in our memory, holding in this moment the complexity of the current conflicts surrounding us around the world. And we'll take a breath and hope that peace may be found. I'll also light a candle after that for the joys and sorrows that are unspoken in our gathering today, but of no less importance. Let us pause for just a few moments of stillness together. In this community, we strive to live with love and courage, ever and always. Here we seek to create transformative community. We say, we are on the road. We are trying to make the world we dream, to release the prisoners, feed the hungry, clothe the naked, lift up those who mourn. We are trying to make it better. We say we strive, and we have failed to be what we meant, to do what we meant, failed to live what we hoped. We say the world gets lost, gets dark, and we get lost. And we say, here's my hand. We'll find the way together. And we say, this way can be hard, but look, there are tiny buds on that tree. But look, there is the sunrise. Let us pause again and breathe. So may it be. Amen.
These are the words of James Baldwin. For nothing is fixed. Forever and forever and forever, it is not fixed. The light is always changing. The sea does not cease to grind down rock. Generations do not cease to be born, and we are responsible to them because we are the only witnesses they have. The sea rises, the light fails, lovers cling to each other, and children cling to us. The moment we cease to hold each other, the moment we break faith with one another, the sea engulfs us and the lights go out.
Let us pause in life's pleasures and count its many tears, while we all suck sorrow with the poor. There's a song that will linger forever in our ears. Oh, hard times come again no more. 'Tis the song, the sigh of the weary. Hard times come again no more. Many days you have lingered around my cabin door. Oh, hard times come again no more. Tis a sigh that is wafted across the troubled wave. Tis a wail that is heard upon the shore. Tis a dirge that is murmured around the lowly grave. Oh, hard times come again no more. 'Tis the song, the sigh of the weary. Hard times come again no more. Many days you have lingered around my cabin door. Oh, hard times come again no more. While we seek mirth and beauty and music bright and gay, they're aware warm beauty at the door. Though their voices are silent, their pleading looks still say, oh, hard times come again no more. 'Tis the song, the sigh of the weary. Hard times come again no more. Many days you have lingered around my cabin door. Oh, hard times come again no more. Oh, hard times come again no more. I need those flowers.
Thank you so much. It is such a blessing for me when I can come into congregations to be able to experience such wonderful music. It can be said that Unitarian Universalists are a particularly wordy people. And in fairness, look what I get to do for a living. And even more, let's be honest, you can just go ahead and settle in and get comfortable for the next good while. We UUs spend a lot of time talking about what we think is true. We think about something, decide what's right, and take positions on things. But here's the thing. None of that was what Spork needed to become part of the community. As much as you sometimes love to think, talk, argue, and search for truth and meaning, those activities alone do not build trust. They might build knowledge or awareness or the kind of connection that comes from striving together with common purpose. But talking about our ideas doesn't build trust. Talking about our lives and having our truth received and held dear, that does. Trust isn't simply a cognitive experience, it's really quite emotional. And if we are part of a religious tradition that prides itself in and maybe even prioritizes thinking, well, we have to work all the harder to build trust. Spork had no reason to trust the utensils that were in charge. Not simply because they ignored Spork, but also because they didn't know or care about Spork's life. They didn't know what Spork was like, what they needed, or what they cared about. Spork had no experience of connection or care, of trust with them. In reconstructing the kitchen, the other utensils spoke with Spork and learned about Spork's life and the lives of others who are like Spork, or even different from both Spork and themselves. They started following people like Spork on social media and reading books that offered new information, perspective, and experience. They didn't simply see a problem with the drawers and build a new one that was just like the first one, only bigger. They connected with Spork in a way that meant that later on, they would not ignore Spork in another situation. They would know Spork deeply, and Spork could trust them because they had made themselves trustworthy. They restructured everything by changing their perspective, their behavior, and their environment. In congregational life, with discussions about funding, polity, the next social justice project, we spend a lot of time searching for what's right, what's best. And in striving to be right, we spend a really lot of time in our cognitive brain basically competing for rightness. And it can become a battle. And battles are not beloved community. Now, in the right circumstances, this competing for rightness, this battle, it is necessary. We battle systemic racial oppression. We battle patriarchal and transphobic laws about controlling people's right to bodily and reproductive autonomy. We battle police and governmental misconduct. And if arguing and battling is our most common, even sometimes most comfortable way of interacting, it interferes with building beloved community. Even if it's not how we want to engage, it's oftentimes how we were taught to engage. Bearing witness is different. When we bear witness to people sharing about the experience of their lives, we must consistently notice and then set aside our thoughts and assumptions, our judgments and assessments, the things that don't yet make sense to us because we don't have the whole picture. We must recognize when what we are bearing witness to is so different from our own experience, we have to be careful that we don't dismiss it out of hand. When we bear witness, we prioritize the story someone else wishes to tell over the questions we have, over where we would like their story to go, over how we mentally fill in any gaps they tell, and goodness, how we want it to end. We return again and again simply to the story they share, and we set aside again and again our assumptions. It's when we can still our minds and be present, fully present with someone like that, then we're able to express meaningful empathy. We make space to be able to say, wow, that must have been so hard. Or, oh my goodness, I am so sorry that happened. You didn't deserve that. Or, That is amazing. I am so honored that you told me that. When we tell the stories of our lives, people have the opportunity to hold space for the unveiling of more of us. And I don't just mean chit chat about our grandkids' sports ball game or humble bragging about our promotion or an info dump about our favorite new hobby, but stories of our struggle for survival, curiosity about who we are and why we do what we do, our learning and growing. When we bear witness to the story of people's lives, we take seriously what we had been taught about others, and we consider how, or even if, that teaching was true. We make ourselves trustworthy by not believing everything we think. Now, this isn't the same as agreeing or disagreeing with a political opinion. It's meeting one another at the center of humanity, where we share how the world impacts us, what it's like to be us in a world that may or may not appreciate our uniqueness. It's not about what we think. It's about who we are and who we are together. But we often don't experience that, do we? We all too often experience people trying to fix us or our situation, or worse, they tell us our experience is wrong. And all too often, it's we who try to fix things for others. When I was a kid growing up on a small stony farm, I only knew about two genders, girl and boy. And I had two choices within girl or failed girl. Just as with boy, there was boy or failed boy. Where I lived, they called a failed girl a tomboy, and they called a failed boy a sissy or a fairy. People policed what a girl or a boy was. I didn't have an individual right to identity. Society decided that for me, and I was to capitulate, to cram myself into one or the other, boy or girl, man or woman. But I wasn't either. As I got older, I worked hard for the words to describe my gender. I'm butch, I tried. I'm a masculine of center person. For a while, I was going with, I'm a tomboy farm girl. None of the words were right. They didn't fit right. And for the longest time, I would just do the litany. I'm a butch, queer, tomboy, farm girl, masculine of center, womanish type person. Well, in the many decades since I was that child, we have developed better understanding, knowledge, and language. And there's now much, much simpler words for my gender, coined not by society at large, but by people who share my experience of gender. I'm non-binary. I'm genderqueer, a gender that does not fall into this Western cultural idea of man and woman as opposite. I'm trans, meaning a cross from the gender people expect me to be as a person who's in a body that's called female. Not a man, not a woman, sort of both, but also neither. People regularly tell me I'm wrong about this. There's a term called gaslighting you may be familiar with. It means to manipulate someone into questioning their sanity. It comes from a movie of the same name, and in that movie, an abusive husband attempted to make his wife think that she was mentally unwell, to question her own perceptions by, among other things, adjusting the lighting, a gas lamp, downward. And she would say, it's dark in here. And he would say, no, it's not, repeatedly and repeatedly, till he got to the point where he was pretending to read a newspaper in the pitch dark, until she completely lost trust of her own senses. Not her cognition, her experience. She lost trust in her experience. The goal of gaslighting is to get someone to disbelieve their own perceptions of reality itself and replace it with someone else's by lying about what we can otherwise plainly tell. It's not dark in here. I can see fine, he said. This is different than discussing or persuading someone to think differently. We do that all the time, right? It's how we do democracy. This gaslighting, it's designed to manipulate people into not believing their own experience. It happens all too often in our personal and religious lives. People who are like Spork, people who do not experience their gender the way broader society tells them they're supposed to. These people are gaslit in our society every single day. People say, there's no such thing as trans. There's no such thing as non-binary. Sometimes they go further and accuse trans people of trying to take away people's right to be cisgender, or of corrupting the children, exactly echoing what the anti-gay movement was saying in the 80s. But regardless of the language they use, their reasoning boils down to some version of this. Because I'm not trans, I'm not non-binary, this doesn't make any sense to me, so I don't believe you. This is a more familiar experience than might seem at first. It's not always nefarious. Many times it comes from a lack of information combined with the surety that we know best. Those of us who are survivors of dysfunctional families and abuse, those of us who are survivors of illnesses like ongoing Lyme, long COVID, fibromyalgia, ME/CFS, chronic fatigue syndrome, and other post-viral illnesses that other people told us didn't exist and we didn't have. Or heck, how many of us were told there was no such thing as PMS, even as we were weeping in pain? We have experienced being surrounded by people who tell us we are wrong or broken in our very being. There are those of us who were told we were bad and lazy, when it turned out we were neurodivergent, but nobody knew what it was back then. We have experienced people tell us that our experience, our very lives are invalid because it differs from theirs. So it must be all in our head, just made up. Some version of, I don't have that. I've never heard of that. I don't believe you. It's even more broadly true for those of us who are survivors with and live with pervasive supremacist systems, sexism, racism, homophobia, classism, trans antagonism, and ableism. I've never experienced oppression like you described. It's not that bad. I don't believe you. And when I'm being honest, I must acknowledge that I've been on both sides of this. I have been the person whose reality is challenged by someone else whose experience is different and refuses to bear witness to me. And I have been the person who has used my own experience to judge others. If you have me back sometime, I will share some of the ways I am my very own cautionary tale. But for right now, this. I live here in Massachusetts, descended from about 400 years of Puritans and other white settlers. I come from people with names like Harbottle Grimscott. Regardless of our family history, though, all of us who are UU are deeply bound up in this history as well, this heritage. I come from generations of people who, when someone dies, says, well, that's too bad. Got to get on with it, though. There's work to do. I come from people for whom grieving is private and internal and set aside as quickly as possible. And sympathy or empathy, if even offered, is shaken off. Feelings are meant to be things that dart past, flashing like a bird that never lands. And our own judgment is most likely right. We're taught that we are the smartest people with the most common sense. Others are certainly wrong. But we're taught judgment, not curiosity, and critical thinking without emotional competence. I grew up knowing only 3 feeling words: mad, sad, and what was the other one again? Oh yeah, mad. Now, personally, I think that this also means that since I come from this long line of people who, because we're never taught what it is to deeply experience what we're experiencing, Our Puritan roots in our family cultures can lead us to gaslight even ourselves. We were never helped to find words for our gender. We were never supported to fully experience grief, to name or even differentiate emotions. So much of our whole culture prioritizes what we should think, what we should be, how we should be, and what we should feel over learning who we actually are. Well, if we weren't taught how to notice, honor, and bear our own feelings and experiences, grief, gender, or otherwise, how can we possibly bear witness to others? How can we express meaningful empathy? So many of us were never taught how to be present with our own feelings. Never mind accept and empathize with others. Now, some of us, with this shared upbringing, having realized that what our families had taught us about life was less helpful than they had thought, or noticed suddenly that our coping mechanisms that had kept all of those feelings at bay had accidentally turned into a drug or alcohol problem, we joined support groups or recovery groups. Others of us joined covenant groups and small group ministry. We may have been flummoxed when we first entered those rooms and found people just sat quietly, listening while someone else talked. I started out being really judgmental of the other people who took up so much time talking about themselves. Oh my goodness, I thought, what an ego-driven thing. Wow, it sure is all about me in here. I had been taught that anything about me was too much. Others of us took to it like fish to water. Finally, I can talk about my life and my experience without being interrupted or corrected or scolded. Over time, I learned by experience that this is how humans grow and connect and develop trust in relationship, that it's a core part of beloved community, that we learn to listen deeply and we trust that other people will listen to us deeply. Will let us share at our own pace, believe what we say about our experience, will care for us even when it's hard for us to care for ourselves. In beloved community, we learn that people will maintain our confidence, protect our autonomy, and make space for us to be different. We learn there are those who will join us in making changes necessary to create more flexible and responsive spaces and processes. In beloved community, we learn to bear witness to the emerging consensus among marginalized peoples regarding the impact of marginalization and oppression on their lives. We understand that our cognition alone is not sufficient to accurately understand others. For some of us, this is the opposite of how we grew up. So many of us are just now learning to tell our truth and to bear witness to others at the same time. And sometimes late in life, after decades of thinking we had a handle not only on what life is like, but that it's like that for everyone. As we practice this, whether it's small group ministry and covenant groups, recovery or therapy groups, or the way we are in coffee hour, we learn to just listen, to suspend judgment, to notice and dismiss, or at least check out our assumptions. Once we start doing this, we found ourselves doing it elsewhere, bearing witness to people. We started noticing and resisting the impulse to be right every single moment, or to tell someone what to do, or to go fix something for them. We started to resist the impulse to do anything that would move the uncomfortable feelings away from us. We bore witness to friends. We sat and held space for people after tragedy. We learned to be present with someone's feelings without taking them in, to be empathetic without drowning in their emotion. Well, next thing you know, we started bearing witness willy-nilly all over the place. It's true. You watch. I'm gonna close with a story. Just as the pandemic was starting up, I, along with the rest of my town, was in the supermarket doing that big panic stock up on staples. It was crowded and tense. It was a man in his 80s, about my dad's age, with that same bent and gnarled but stalwart posture that my dad has. He was clearly confused but determined in the soup aisle. There's a lot of soup in the soup aisle. I paused in my franticness, and I said, "Are you okay? Can I help?" He asked me if I knew where the mushroom soup was. I said, "There's a few different brands. Do you know which one you need?" He told me he didn't really know. His wife had always cooked, and he didn't know what to get now that she'd died. He was grief-stricken and frightened, and I simply bore witness. I stood there for 10 minutes and I listened to him talk about his wife and her cooking, how confusing the grocery store is, and how he regretted never going with her to shop because he believed it had been her job. In the end, I helped him choose 2 cans to try. But mushroom soup wasn't what he needed that day. I had to buy it, sure, but what he needed was for someone to see him, to bear witness to the way his life had completely changed, to how he was bereft and didn't know how he'd continue moving forward. It was an honor to be present with him in that aisle. As I paused in my panic and warded off people crushing carts into us and theirs, I was changed by the experience. When we are present, just present with someone, we open ourselves and them up to possibilities. And when we try not to control the possibilities or the outcome, but just let it happen, miracles of connection, trust, and real change occur. And what happens is nothing like what we expect, and so much more beautiful. Amen. Blessed be, and may it be so because we make it so. Our closing song is hymn number 1012, When I Am Frightened. Please rise in body or spirit as you choose.
When I am frightened, will you reassure me? When I am certain, will you hold my hand? Will you be strong for me? Sing to me quietly. Will you share some of your stories with me? If you will show me compassion, then I may learn to care as you do. Then I may learn to care. When I am angry, will you still embrace me? When I am thoughtless, will you understand? Will you believe in me? Stand by me willingly. Will you share some of your questions with me? If you will show me acceptance, then I may learn to give as you do. Then I may learn to give. When I am troubled, will you listen to me? When I am lonely, will you be my friend?
Please be seated. CB, I just want to tell you that I was sitting in here listening and loving what you were sharing with us. And one of the things my daughter pointed out to me many years ago, that Unitarian Universalists aren't amen people, but they're humming people. So somebody says, do you know, right? Have you guys noticed this? Somebody says something that you really think is true, and you go, And I want you to know, CB, out there in Massachusetts, that there was a lot of humming going on here. It was a good day. Our closing words by Bob Doss. For all who see God, may God go with you. For all who embrace life, may life return your affection. For all who seek a right path, may a way be found, and the courage to take it step by step. Amen, and blessed be. Let's extinguish our chalice with our chalice lighting words. We extinguish our flame, but not the light of truth, the warmth of community, the fire of commitment, or the power of transformation. These we carry in our hearts until we are together again.
Bionic things.